Do you like this piece? Okay, what do you think of this one? How about we do some improv instead? Unmotivated students can quickly drain our own motivation. We throw every trick at them, but somehow they're not being wowed by our incredibly cool and charming selves. So what can we do? If you have an unmotivated student, the first thing you need to figure out is whether they're unmotivated or actually overwhelmed. So is your student not enjoying what they're doing? They're not interested in being involved in the lesson because they actually hate what they're doing or don't want to be there? Or is it that you're giving them too much? It could be too much stuff to do, like too many tasks at once. The pieces feel too difficult. The things you're asking them to do feel overwhelming in some way. Maybe they're overwhelmed by you. I know sometimes when students are very quiet, we teachers will overdo our loudness or try and compensate for lack of energy. Sometimes we need to dial it down and think about meeting the student on their level and where they're at energy-wise. So let's say they are unmotivated. You're pretty sure it's not overwhelm. It is they don't want to be there or they don't like it in some way. They're not in the lesson with us. Okay, so why? Well, the first reason might be the most obvious one and the one you can do the least about: parent-led lessons. Is your student there because their parent or someone else in their life told them they have to take piano lessons, and that was that? Because if that's the case, we're not going to really motivate them because we're starting on the back foot. What I like to do in that case is just level with them. Just have the conversation. Often when we have students like this, they're not little kids. I've rarely had a little kid where their parent was forcing them to be there and they were not into it at all. It's mostly like teens and preteens. And if that's the case and their parent's not in the room, I will just say to them, hey, it seems like maybe piano lessons are more Mum's idea than your idea. Have I got that right? And then just have the conversation, have it out. Yeah, she's making me be here. Normally they will tell you, these students, outright, yeah, I have to take piano. I was told I have to take piano. Then I literally say to them, okay, so I can't do anything about that because I'm not your parent, so I have no control of that. All I can do is make the lesson as fun for you as possible. So what would that look like? Now, you won't take them from completely unmotivated to suddenly wanting to major in music when they get to college, but you might develop a better relationship with them and have a more pleasant lesson experience. Sometimes students are unmotivated simply because of the pieces they're learning. The music is just not inspiring to them. It's not in the right genre, they don't connect with it, something is off. Particularly you'll see this with students maybe you had for a while, and sometimes their motivation is decreasing over time. And you're trying to figure out why. The first place we should look is their repertoire. Is it just not gelling with them? Have their tastes changed and therefore we're getting it a bit wrong even though we were up to date with where they were in the past? Are we pushing a certain genre of music on them just because we assume that they should or would like to do that genre of music, but actually they're not into it? Have the repertoire discussion with them and see if there's any way to broaden it out. Now, if you're going to do that, I highly recommend that you give them choices to say, okay, we're going to add in another book. I wouldn't even abandon the previous book in case that's not the issue. I'd keep that on the roster. Say, hey, it's time to add in another book. And I'd send them a list with links to all sorts of other books. I usually send it to the parents as well and ask them to listen at home. And if they don't listen at home, then when they come back, we listen to little snippets and bits and pieces together. So I'll make sure that that list is all at their level, all a level where I'd be happy for them to learn those pieces, but they're a wide range of genres, making no assumptions about what they would or would not like. So I'll put classical arrangements in there and true classical pieces and rock and new age and pop. You see what I'm saying? So a good broad range, making no assumptions based on what you think they like, because tastes change, and also students aren't always completely upfront with us, or they don't know how to explain what type of music they like until they hear it. So sending them that kind of list, listening together, deciding on new repertoire might just shake them out of their unmotivation. You might also have a student who seems unmotivated because actually their goals don't fit your studio. If you have a particular way you teach, whether you take a stand on some particular thing or whatever the case may be, maybe this student just doesn't gel with that. So if that's the case, can you be flexible? Or is that something you believe very strongly in which case we should suggest a better fit teacher for them. I'll give you an example. In my studio, we sometimes do exams. Exams are very prevalent here in Ireland, but we don't do them by default every year. We're not a big exam-led studio. I make that very clear to families from the off before they join us, so I usually don't have these issues. But it could be the case that a student, maybe we somehow didn't have that conversation when they start, and they're not motivated because they feel like they're not on this exam train, and that's where they want to be. Well, that's just not a good fit for us. I'm not going to push them through endless exams. I'm happy for students to do exams sometimes, but I don't want that to be everything, and I don't want us to be racing through them. And that is something I feel strongly about and I won't really bend on. Most other things, I will. So if a student is not into classical music at all, that's fine with me. If they don't want to read music for a while, they want to focus on improv, that is also fine with me. But for you, it might be a different thing, that actually the student just isn't a good fit. Now, before we finish up, a few don'ts for you. If your student seems unmotivated, please do not nag them about practice. And I know you don't aim to nag, but really any questioning about practice with a student who is already feeling unmotivated is going to come across as nagging. Also, huge don't make lessons unenjoyable. I have seen these comments from teachers before where a student hasn't done their practice or isn't doing what they're supposed to do or isn't showing up with their books, so they purposefully make the lesson less fun, like they do Hanon for the whole lesson or whatever the thing is that the student doesn't like. Don't do that. That's not going to motivate anyone. We have to make the lesson still enjoyable and communicate to the student that, hey, I still care about you as a person. I'm still in this relationship. I'm still invested in you, even if you're not into piano right now. And finally, do not put them in for exams or festivals or whatever competition equivalent is with you. That will not motivate them. It will likely demotivate them further. At best, things are going to stay the same. And at worst, it might totally crush their spirit and they might decide, hey, I'm not musical at all because I couldn't do this. We know they couldn't do it because they weren't practicing and they weren't motivated for it in the first place, but those things have to be led by students. It doesn't work to impose them on students. I hope that helps with your unmotivated students. If you want more piano teaching ideas, watch this video next.